I used to think you had to believe in ghosts to be haunted. But now I know. All it takes is love and loss and something small enough to hide inside your memory. The day our mom died, Kaylee didn't cry. Not once. She just stared at the wall with this empty little expression, like someone had turned the volume down on the whole world. I was 15. She was 7. And I remember thinking, I have to be strong for her. I didn't feel strong. But I guess grief doesn't care what you feel. It just takes what it wants. They sent us to live with Aunt Clara, Mom's older sister. We'd only met her once when we were kids, a quiet visit at a hospital after her hip surgery. She smelled like ginger tea and old perfume. I remember thinking she was like a ghost back then, too. Pale, still, careful with her words. Clara lived in a gray house at the edge of nowhere, like a forgotten thought. One of those old 2-story homes where everything breaks but nothing speaks. Beige walls, plastic-covered couches, no Wi-Fi. The moment we stepped inside, I could feel it. The silence wasn't peaceful. I watched it. Like the house remembered things we didn't. Kaylee clung to me that first night. She didn't want to eat, didn't want to unpack, just curled up in my twin bed, staring out the window like she was waiting for someone. I asked her, "What are you looking at?" She said, "Nothing. But it's looking at me." I figured she was just scared, or sleep-deprived, or still in shock. Hell, I was too. I just hid it better. But then came the attic. The third day, I went looking for some boxes. Clara said we could put our clothes in the old upstairs dresser, but it smelled like mothballs and dead air. So I climbed into the attic thinking maybe I'd find something better. I wish I hadn't. The attic door was stiff, like it hadn't been opened in years. Dust floated like snowflakes in the beam of light coming through the cracked window. Everything was draped in sheets, chairs, old furniture, forgotten junk. And in the center of it all was her, a Barbie doll. Perched perfectly in a pink wooden chair too big for her. Her hair was platinum blonde, matted at the edges, but still brushed. Her dress, old-fashioned. Handmade, almost. Like something a porcelain doll would wear in the 1950s. And her face? Her face was cracked. Just a little. Just beneath the left eye. But it made her smile look crooked. Like she was smirking at a secret you'd never understand. I picked her up without thinking. She was cold, heavy, heavier than a regular Barbie, like she was made of ceramic under the plastic. I brushed her hair back, and for a second, I could have sworn her eyes shifted, just a flick, like she was trying to look at me. I laughed at myself, told myself I was being dramatic, that my brain was fried from too many late nights and too many funeral casseroles. I was about to put her back in the chair, but that's when I heard the floorboards creak behind me. Kaylee. She stood in the doorway of the attic, barefoot in her pajamas. Her eyes were wide, and her lips were moving. But no sound came out. She walked straight up to me and reached for the doll. I held it out, confused. "You want this?" She nodded, and then, in this tiny whisper, she said, "She remembers me." That night, Kaylee slept with the doll tucked in her arms, like it had always belonged to her. She didn't toss or turn, didn't whimper like she had the last few nights. Just lay there, still, smiling. I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about Mom, about the last thing she ever said to me. "Take care of your sister. Don't let the world take her too." I didn't know what she meant then. Now, I think she knew something was coming. The days got strange after that. Kaylee started talking less, eating less. She stopped drawing, which was weird. She loved drawing. Used to make me pictures every day after school, but now her notebook pages were blank, except for one. It was a picture of Barbie, sitting in the attic chair, but the face wasn't plastic. It was Mom's, with hollow black eyes and blood dripping from the mouth. I showed Aunt Clara. She just nodded and said, "Children grieve differently," but I could tell she was shaken. She looked at the picture for a long time, then folded it and put it in her apron pocket. That was the first time I noticed the way Clara looked at the attic door, like it owed her something, like she was afraid it would ask for more. The next night, I woke up to whispers, not Kaylee's voice. Something older, like a child pretending to sound like a grown-up. I tiptoed to Kaylee's room. She was asleep. But the doll was sitting on the floor, facing the door, legs perfectly crossed, and her head turned just slightly toward me as I stepped in. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I just backed out of the room, closed the door, and leaned against the wall, shaking. "This is ridiculous," I told myself. "It's just a toy. It's just a stupid old toy." But deep down, I knew. That doll had eyes. Not painted on, not pretend. Watching eyes. I tried to convince myself to throw it out, to take it back to the attic, but every time I looked at it, I saw Kaylee smiling, and I couldn't take away the only thing that seemed to make her happy. But the truth? That thing wasn't making her happy. It was feeding. On grief. On memory. On something darker than either of us understood. And it wasn't done yet. Do you ever feel like your house is remembering something you don't? Like the walls know your secrets before you do? That's what it was like living with Aunt Clara. The floors groaned in places no one walked. Light bulbs flickered when no one touched a switch. And that attic door, it started creaking open on its own. Just a little. I kept telling myself it was just wind, or bad wiring, that I was grieving and paranoid and projecting. But then Kaylee changed. Not slowly. Overnight. One morning I woke up to the sound of her humming, that same little melody the doll played, but lower, slower, like it had been slowed down on a tape and distorted just enough to feel wrong. I found her in the hallway, sitting with her knees tucked under her chin, just staring at the wall, clutching the doll. I asked her what she was doing. She said, "Waiting for her to wake up." I knelt next to her. "Kaylee, who are you talking about?" She smiled at me, but it wasn't her smile. I don't know how else to say that. It was wider, more patient, like it knew something I didn't. Then she said, "You shouldn't call her the doll. That's not her name." "Okay," I said. "Then what is her name?" She tilted her head. "Rose." The name hit me like a cold hand around the neck, because that was our family's secret name. The one no one talked about. Mom had said it once, only once. Clara had a sister, Rose. She was different. That's all she ever said. And then she changed the subject like she was ashamed. That afternoon, while Kaylee napped with the doll under her arm, I went into Clara's study. I wasn't supposed to, but something told me I'd find what I needed there. I searched through drawers until I found a faded folder. Inside were yellowing news clippings, old photographs, a hospital tag with the name Rose Mathers, and one photo in particular. A little girl, about 8 years old, is sitting in a chair, wearing that same dress, holding that same doll, but her face was scribbled out in ink. I confronted Clara that night. "Who is Rose?" I asked. "And why does Kaylee know her name?" Clara didn't speak for a long time, just sat in her chair, staring into the fireplace like she was waiting for it to speak instead. Finally, she said, "Rose was my sister, your great aunt. She died when she was 9. "Why?" I asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Because I didn't believe her." Clara told me Rose had always been strange. She talked to her toys like they were real, said they talked back. She drew pictures of people with hollow eyes and stitched mouths, and she said her doll, the one with the pink dress, had a real name. "Her name is Bella," Rose had said, "and she protects me." But Rose started acting out, scratching walls, screaming at night, talking in voices that didn't belong to her. One morning, Clara found her writing something on the walls in her own blood. "I won't go back inside." "We thought it was a breakdown," Clara whispered, "so they sent her to the institution in Ashgrove. And a week later, she was dead. They said it was suicide, but I don't believe that." She turned to me, and for the first time since we'd arrived, I saw real fear in her eyes. "That doll has been passed down for generations," she said, "and every time it finds someone broken, someone it can climb into." Rose thought it was her protector, but it was just waiting. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at her, or cry, or laugh because it sounded crazy. But then she said the one thing I couldn't ignore. "I buried it, in the attic. I nailed the box shut myself. That doll should have never seen daylight again." I ran upstairs. Kaylee was gone. Her window was open, cold air pouring into the room. The doll was sitting on the windowsill, alone. I ran outside barefoot, calling her name. The woods behind Clara's house were thick, black. "Kaylee! Kaylee, come back!" And then I heard it. That same humming, but not from Kaylee, from deeper in the trees, like something small was echoing her. I followed the sound. My skin was scraped by branches, bare feet on cold leaves, breathing ragged. And then I saw her. Kaylee was sitting on a stone in the clearing, holding the doll, smiling up at nothing. I ran to her, heart pounding, and grabbed her arms. "Kaylee, what are you doing out here? It's freezing!" She looked at me with glassy eyes and said, she showed me where Rose died. She said it's my turn now. I tried to pull the doll from her hands. "No!" she screamed, louder than I've ever heard her. She said, "You're the one who has to go. You lied. You promised you'd never leave me." "What are you talking about? I'm trying to save you." But Kaylee just sobbed and clutched the doll to her chest. Clara found us a few minutes later. She looked at the stone Kaylee was sitting on and froze. "That's where we buried her," she whispered. "That's where we buried Rose." She fell to her knees, tears pouring down her face, and for the first time I understood. Clara didn't just fail to believe her sister. She gave her away. She chose the world's comfort over Rose's truth. And now, something was back to collect. That night, I sat alone in the attic, the doll in my lap. I looked at her face, her cracked eye, her frozen smile. "What do you want?" I whispered. And for a second I thought I saw the answer reflected in the glass of her eye. "Not Kaylee, you." And then the music box started playing, without anyone winding it. It's a strange thing, watching someone you love slowly disappear, while their body's still right in front of you. That's what started happening to Kaylee. It was like the little girl I knew was being peeled away, layer by layer, and something else, someone else, was crawling underneath. After that night in the woods, she stopped sleeping in her room. Said the Barbie, Rose, she still called her, didn't like the curtains, that they reminded her of the hospital. So she moved to the attic, built a little space in the corner with pillows, blankets, a throne for the doll made out of old books and lace, like she was setting up a shrine. Clara told me to give it time. "She's fragile, and that thing feeds on fragile things," she said. But time was the one thing we didn't have. I started having dreams, the kind that didn't feel like dreams. I was back in our childhood house. The walls are bleeding black ink. Mom in the corner, rocking back and forth, whispering something I couldn't hear. And Kaylee, standing at the top of the stairs, holding the doll. Her eyes were empty, her mouth stitched shut. When I woke up, I'd always find something small had changed. The hallway mirror fogged over, even though no one had showered. The faucets are dripping pink. One morning, every photo in the living room had Kaylee scratched out, with tiny fingernail marks. I confronted her. "Kaylee, what's happening to you?" She just blinked at me and smiled that too wide smile. "You said you'd protect me." "I'm trying." "Number, you're lying. You always lie." "That's not fair." "You left me the night Mom died." That hit like a punch to the chest, because I had. I was the one who found her, Mom, on the bathroom floor, and instead of running to Kaylee, I just froze. I remember hearing her scream from her room, "Why won't you come get me?" But I didn't move. I stood there staring at Mom's eyes, the guilt wrapped around my spine like barbed wire, and in that moment I realized something. The doll wasn't just feeding on Kaylee's grief, it was feeding on mine. I went back into the attic that night. Kaylee was asleep on the floor, curled around the doll like a cat around a wound. I sat down beside her, picked the doll up. For a second, it felt heavier than ever, like I was lifting a body, not a toy. And then, it spoke. Not out loud, in my head. A voice, childlike, but knowing. "You failed her. You made her small. Now she's mine." I dropped the doll, and Kaylee's eyes snapped open. Not startled, not scared. Waiting. "Did she talk to you?" she asked. I nodded. "Good," Kaylee said. "That means you're ready." The next morning, Aunt Clara was gone. No note, no car, just her bedroom door, wide open, and her bed, completely made, like she'd never lived there. I found her apron, folded on the kitchen counter, inside the pocket. Was that drawing Kaylee had made? The Barbie with our mom's face, and on the back, in shaky pen, "She comes for sisters." I called the police, reported Clara missing. They said she probably wandered off. She was old, unstable, grieving. But I knew better. The house had taken her back. That night, I tried to get Kaylee to leave. "We're going," I told her. "Now, pack a bag." She didn't move, just stared at me. "You can't take me. She needs me." "She's not real, Kaylee." "She is to me." I walked over and grabbed her wrist. "I'm not asking." And that's when she screamed, but not like Kaylee. It was a woman's scream, old, furious, like something was being dragged across a stone inside her chest. The lights exploded. Every bulb in the house, pop, pop, pop. I fell back, and in the dark, I saw the doll standing, not lying, not propped up, standing. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I woke up, the whole house smelled like lavender and vinegar, the way it did when Mom was alive.
I walked down the hall, dazed, and there, in the living room, was a tea party. Kaylee, the doll, and my mother, except it wasn't really her. It was her face, stretched over something else, eyes blank, skin porcelain. She turned to me and said, "There you are. We've been waiting." I ran, out the front door, into the trees. Didn't care that it was raining. Didn't care that I couldn't see. I just ran. I ended up back at the stone in the woods. The place where Clara said Rose was buried. I dropped to my knees and started digging. With my bare hands, dirt and worms and roots clawing under my nails. I don't know what I expected to find. Bones, a coffin, but I didn't find any of that. I found a mirror, buried in the earth, and when I looked into it, I didn't see myself. I saw Kaylee, holding the doll, and behind her, 1,000 other girls, all with cracked faces and hollow eyes. Waiting. That's when I understood. This wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about remembering. About every girl who was ignored. Every warning that was dismissed. Every time someone said, "She's just imagining it." Rose wasn't a ghost. She was wounded. And wounds don't heal when you bury them. They fester, and one day, they crawl back up. Kaylee's birthday was supposed to be a day of hope. A fresh start. Instead, it became the day time stopped making sense. Clara used to say birthdays were sacred. A time when the veil thins. When past and present slip like water through your fingers. I didn't understand that before. Not really. But after what happened, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The morning started like any other. Kaylee was excited. She wanted to wear her pink dress, the one Rose wore in that old photo. I wanted to say no. But I didn't. Something about the way she said, "It's important," made me hesitate. So I let her. We decorated the house with ribbons and balloons. I tried to push away the creeping cold feeling that hung in the air like a storm ready to break. Around noon, things started changing. The air grew thick, like the walls were holding their breath. Shadows moved without source. The dolls in the cabinet seemed to watch me. Kaylee didn't seem scared. She was different. When I called her for lunch, she didn't come. I found her in the attic. The shrine is bigger now. Candles flickered in a circle around the doll. She looked up at me, eyes gleaming. Not with childhood innocence, but with something older. Calculated. It's time, she said. I asked her, time for what? She smiled. For the birthday party. I didn't understand. She took my hand and led me into the woods behind the house. To the clearing. The same clearing where Rose died. There was a fire pit, a circle of stones. And around it, figures. Women, girls, all wearing pale dresses. Faces like porcelain dolls. Hollow eyes. I blinked, and they vanished. But the fire stayed. Kaylee knelt by the fire. This is the beginning and the end, she whispered. Rose said birthdays are rebirths. She said I have to join her. Or she'll never leave me alone. I tried to pull her away. Kaylee, come back, this isn't you. But she shook her head. I am me, and I'm tired of hiding. She began to chant, words I didn't understand, but they felt like ancient curses. And the air cracked. The fire jumped higher. Shadows danced wildly. I realized, this wasn't a birthday party. It was a ritual. From inside the fire, a shape rose. First a hand, then a face. It was Rose, or what was left of her. Her eyes locked on me. You lied, she hissed. You promised to protect her. You left her to rot. I felt my knees give out. All the years, all the pain, the guilt. I whispered, I'm sorry. But the flame swallowed her words. When I opened my eyes, Kaylee was gone. The doll was all that remained, lying on the cold earth, pink dress stained with ash. I picked it up, and in its glassy eyes, I saw my own reflection. That night, I knew the truth. The doll wasn't just a curse. It was a chain, linking past to present, binding souls who never got justice. And now, it was my turn. The days after Kaylee disappeared into the woods felt like a nightmare stretched out over a week. I kept hoping she'd walk back through the door, laughing, brushing ash off her dress. But the house stayed silent. Until she came back. Kaylee wasn't Kaylee anymore. She moved like a ghost, slow, deliberate. Her voice was low and clipped, like she was trying to hide something. But her eyes, those glassy, empty eyes were the worst. Not human, not alive. You're home, she said. And it sounded like a question. Like she wasn't sure if I should be here. I tried to reach her. Kaylee, it's me, your sister. She looked right through me. I'm not Kaylee. That voice, it wasn't hers. It was cold, like the doll speaking through her. Who are you? I whispered. She smiled. I'm what she left behind. The nights grew worse. Kaylee wouldn't sleep. She'd sit in the dark, staring at the doll. Sometimes, I caught her talking to it, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. She's coming, Kaylee said once. And this time, she's not asking. I started seeing things too. Shadows moving just out of sight. Reflections that didn't match. A cold hand brushing my shoulder when no one was there. I knew the doll was gaining power. And Kaylee was slipping further away. One night, I found a note taped to the window. Find the truth before she takes you too. No signature. I realized then, Clara hadn't left. She was trying to warn me. I dug through her things. Old journals, letters, photographs. Clara had been researching Rose for years. Trying to break the cycle. There was a ritual, something to bind the spirit. But it required a sacrifice. The choice was mine. Let Kaylee go, or take her place. I couldn't lose her, but I couldn't lose myself either. I stared at the doll, lying on the table. Its eyes seemed to gleam with cruel intelligence. And I whispered, I'm coming. Because sometimes, to save someone else, you have to risk losing yourself first. The air in the attic was thick with dust and something else. Something ancient. I wasn't sure if it was fear or the weight of the past pressing down. The doll sat on the floor, waiting. I swallowed hard. I'd made my choice. Kaylee was there too, but she wasn't Kaylee anymore. She was a shell, eyes hollow, voice barely a whisper. You don't have to do this, she said. But I did. I promised to protect you, I told her. And I'm not breaking that promise. Clara's notes were clear. The ritual required someone willing to become the new anchor. To hold the darkness, so the next victim could live. It was a sacrifice. But I was ready. I lit the candles in a circle, the doll in the center. The air grew cold. I began the chant Clara had written. Words foreign to me, but ancient. Binding. The doll's eyes flashed. Rose's voice filled my mind. You can't run from what you've done. I felt a coldness crawling up my spine. My vision blurred. I saw memories, my failures. That night I didn't run to Kaylee. The times I ignored her pain. But I also saw her, Kaylee, laughing, alive. The ritual ended. I opened my eyes. Kaylee smiled. Thank you, she whispered. But when I looked down, the doll was gone, and in its place was me. I had taken her place. The anchor, the protector, and the curse. I'm telling you this now, because the doll will find someone else. Someone who needs saving, and I'll be waiting, because of some promises, never ending. End of Barbie Doll's Revenge.